We're here on the UA booth with Thomas, who's going to show us the latest software and Apollo's new surround features, I believe.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, great. Thanks for coming by. So we're here at the 2019 NAMM show, and we're showing quite a few sort of highlights that we've been bringing out in the last few months. So first up, we have the Apollo X interface range, which I know you guys have already reviewed. So we think the most comprehensive Thunderbolt interface range on the market. So Thunderbolt 3, we have 4 products in the range. So we have X6, X8, X8P and X16, and they range from 2 preamps, 4 and 8, and then obviously the X16, which is like your line level converters. And the sort of flagship feature for us on the X series is the elite grade conversion, which I know we've talked about before. So specs wise, we're achieving up to 133 dB of dynamic range and actually minus 129 dB of THD plus noise. So the best specified audio interface range on the market at the moment. And the reason we get to that is about clocking. Now I know you're quite a fan of various technologies and clocking and that kind of thing. So how we do this is something called dual crystal clocking, where we use two crystals effectively. So they're selected for 44.1 and then 48K and all the various multipliers. So that gives us an ability to lower the jitter of the interface, and that gives us great stereo imaging and all this detail. So they're sort of like about 5 or 6 times over improvement in terms of lower jitter than anything we've done before. And so for us, they're really the definitive sounding Apollo range. So on top of the X series, which is, you know, this is its first NAMM, so the reason we're talking about this is it's introduced at NAMM this year, is we've got hexa-core processing in all of the 4 units. So previously you would choose an Apollo based off, you know, power and DSP power as well as the I/O quota, whereas now we have 50% more processing in all of the units, and they have 6 UAD2 chips on board. And so that allows us to run more of the plugins in real time and tracking through things like the Unison preamps, etc., which I know you use and try, right? So because of this, we have more power to run all of these new things, which we'll get to in a second on screen. But the big highlight for us, we've recently just launched the 9.7.1 update, and for that's brought surround sound to the Apollo X platform. And so we have now up to 5.1 on the X6 and up to 7.1 on the X8, X8P and the X16. So if you do post-production, audio for game, or any of the new multi-channel delivery formats that are coming out even in more consumer audio, then we really sort of introduce monitoring in this mode for the Apollo for the first time, which is a really big boon. And one thing as well is it allows you to do dB SPL calibrated listening. So if you're a fan of things like the K-system monitoring control, it actually brings that as an improvement into the stereo monitoring. So quite a big upgrade for Apollo X in general.
And of course, every update brings with it yet more plugins.
Exactly, yeah. So with the 9.7 release, we brought out a whole new set of plugins, namely the 4ATL, the Lexicon, which was released in the late 80s, but I'm sure you've seen it as the Lexicon alphanumeric remote control, the LARC, the controller, was buried in every mixing console for the last 30 years pretty much. And it's defined the sound of so many award-winning records and pop music, really. So a very swirly reverb sound. So we've brought this out with all the algorithms that you'd find on the original unit in the best firmware version. So it's pretty much the definitive mix reverb and exclusive to UAD as well, this one. So you know, the only authorized Lexicon for ATL in the world. And interestingly, I know something we see a lot is 4 out of 5 Grammy nominated or Grammy winning records use UAD plugins now, and so they run on our Apollo interfaces or on our DSP accelerators like the satellites and the PCI cards. So now you have access to this reverb for mixing, you know. On top of that, we've also brought out the soft tube vocoder, which is a 20-band vocoder and really gets that sound of like Daft Punk and African Bambaataa and all these classic things. So that's a good one for creative effects. We're always expanding guitar amplifiers too. I know you've played through a lot of the guitar amps on the Apollo platform. So we now have 2 new models from Sir, the PT100 and the SE100. So the Pete Thorne signature, which we're showing here, is Pete's a good friend of UA, and we have this great sort of hard rock flexible 3-channel amplifier now on the platform. So you can record through this in real time through any of your Apollo.
And I think it's fair to say that is a hard rock kind of amplifier. It's for people who like really driven kind of sounds. Yeah, great for crunch, drop tuning, all of the sort of harder rock things. Pete was really renowned for playing with Chris Cornell and that sort of the Soundgarden era and onwards, I guess Audio Slave, that type of sound. So it's really sort of similar for that. And then finally, we've also brought out the Neve preamp, which you may have seen. It's like the 1290 or a smaller version of a 1073, and that runs on all of our interfaces, so you can record through it as a Unison preamp or use it for saturation. It's just a nice 2-knob
simple to use preamp for that classic Neve sound. We also have the Neve DFC, which is a film console for broadcast people if anyone's interested in broadcast sound. So there's a lot of new plugins from UA already this year.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Thanks very much
indeed, Thomas.